Alright, so welcome to this tutorial on how to install Ubuntu Linux. There are many different distributions of Linux. I chose Ubuntu because it's the most user-friendly. So what you're going to start with when you first boot your computer up off of the live CD is this window here. What this is telling you to do is to hit any key on your keyboard and it'll bring up a menu. So I'll do that right now. So now it asks for your language. I speak English, so I'm going to choose English. So now you have a couple of options here. First, you can try Ubuntu without installing. This means that it's going to run off of the live CD, boot into a live environment that's very similar to the environment you would get if you install Ubuntu. However, this is not going to affect anything on your hard drive whatsoever. You can straight up install Ubuntu. This will install it directly to the hard drive and most likely erase what you have on there. You can then check the disk for defects. This is to make sure there's no problems from your download or when you burnt the CD. And then you can test your memory. This will test every block of your memory to make sure it's functioning correctly. And finally, you can boot from your first hard drive. So if you had some other operating system on here already, you could boot from that. I'm going to start with installing Ubuntu. Now keep in mind that first menu did not have any mouse integration. It was entirely keyboard driven, so you have to use your up and down arrow keys and enter to select which one you want. Now we are in a graphical environment, so again it asks you for your language, but this is for the install, not the menus. So we'll continue with English. You can also click here to review the release notes. That'll open up a web page telling you all about Ubuntu and what they've done on the new installation. So I'm just going to click continue. So it tells you for best results, have these things. The first one is 4.4 gigabytes of available space on your hard drive. This is so that you can install the operating system minimally. The second thing is an internet connection. It's not necessarily needed. However, it's very useful because you can get you can update while you're installing, as well as you can get your third-party software. If you're on a laptop, there would be a third option here that says plugged into power. This is a really good idea if you're installing on a laptop, because if the power goes out while you're installing, you're not going to be able to pick up where you left off, and whatever files were written will be truncated. So you basically have to start from scratch, which is just wasted time. So I'm going to check yes to installing updates, and then as well as install third-party software. This is for your codecs and different pieces of software that they can't bundle directly with the distribution. So then I'm going to click continue. So you have two options here, and if you had another operating system on here, you'd have a few more options. For now, we have a completely blank drive. So I'm going to click erase and install Ubuntu. Something else will allow you to edit each partition on your drive and then install something new. This will also let you partition out your drive in different sections, so you could have a different place on your drive for documents, whereas programs would go somewhere else. That's more for the advanced user. Right now we're just going to stick with erase entire disk and install Ubuntu. Keep in mind, if you have an operating system or data already on your system, this will erase everything on your system. So right here it's showing me that it's going to install to this drive, and it's going to use the entire drive. If you had another operating system here and you selected the install alongside another operating system, then this would be divided in half. Half of your drive would go to Linux, whereas the other half would go to the original operating system you had. As of right now, I only have this one operating system that's going to be going on, so it's going to use the entire drive. So I'm going to click install now. This immediately starts to go and install. So now it's asking me where I am. This is more or less for the time and the time zone. I am in New York time zone, so I'm going to click continue. And then this asks you for your keyboard layout. Most of the time it's going to be English US. However, you can always check down at this text box here. If you type something out and your keyboard is giving very odd results, you probably have the wrong keyboard selected. You can also hit detect keyboard layout. That'll allow you to, it'll ask you for you to hit a couple of keys, very specific keys, and it'll decide what kind of format you have based off of that. As of right now, I am English US, so I don't have to do that. So I'm going to click continue. Now it's asking me who am I. It's asking for my name, so I'm going to put for the name Ubuntu class, and then for my computer name it's going to put your name, and then it's going to fill in the name of your computer. As of right now I'm using a virtual machine, so it called it VirtualBox. So I'm going to call this computer Ubuntu class. And then for the username, this has to be in all lowercase letters. The difference between the username and your name is the username is what you're going to use to log on with. Your name is what's going to be displayed after you log on. I can show you that later. The username must be in all lowercase. It cannot have capitals. And then you're going to want to insert a strong password. As of right now, I've got a weak password due to the fact that I don't feel like creating a strong password. And this is entirely for the class, so it's not entirely necessary for me to come up with a strong password. So click continue. And then this slideshow will show you all the different features of Ubuntu. Right now I'm using Ubuntu 12.04 long-term support. This distribution will be supported for 5 years. So here it says the installation was complete and I need to restart my computer. So at this point, the operating system is entirely installed and I just need to reboot. At this point it should have ejected the disk if there is one, so all you have to do is hit enter. This is to make sure that you don't boot back into the live CD and that you boot from your new operating system. So if everything went according to plan, you should be prompted for a login. Up here you can see the name of your computer, and then you have your keyboard layout, your sound preferences, your date and time, and then your power buttons. Over here you can have your guest account login. This is for if you want somebody to have access to your computer but very limited access so they can't actually hurt your computer. You would do something like a guest session. Right now we're going to log in as the user we made in the installation process. Here we have a button that allows you to select between Ubuntu 2D and Ubuntu. The difference between the two is that Ubuntu 2D is made for computers with less hardware power and graphics power. Most computers nowadays will be able to use Ubuntu, as well as Ubuntu has an automatic setting. If it doesn't think your computer can handle the Ubuntu 3D, then it'll do Ubuntu 2D. So down here you can see the name of the distribution and the version. I'm using Ubuntu 12.04 long-term support. So now we're just going to log in with the password we made during the installation. And there you have it. There is the install in a nutshell. Here you have all of your programs this here is your home folder. This would be equivalent to your user folder under Windows. Then you have your applications here, and then your system settings, and then finally your workspace switcher. And you have your trash bin down here. This is the dash home. It's equivalent to the start menu on Windows. Rather than coming out of the bottom, it comes out to the side and fills up your screen. And you can select and search from applications from here. This concludes the Ubuntu installation. Thank you for tuning in.